Derby County made 2 deadline day deals just before the international break. We signed Marcus Harness from Ipswich Town and Nat Phillips from Liverpool. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing my expectations for them across the course of the season. Now, obviously, everyone's expectations for these players is going to be very, very different, but I'm just going to give my point of view, my expectations of what I expect from them heading into this campaign. Now, obviously, we have to take into account my expectations for Derby County. And if you have not done so already, make sure you go and check out my Championship previews video, which is where I essentially tell you what I expect of Derby County. And to just put that into a brief segment here, I think that we need to finish 21st. 21st or above, so we don't go down. I think that is a successful season, in my opinion. Anything better is obviously warranted, like it's wanted. I'll take it, of course. But before we get into the expectations on the players, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Go and follow me over on socials as well, and let's get into this video. Now, obviously, Marcus Harness was a bit part player, a bit similar to Caden Jackson in Ipswich Town's double promotion, especially more of a bit part player last year, and I think he could have a big role for us this season. You look at Derby County over the course of the last 2 years heading into this season, and we've only ever really had one good wide player, one effective wide player in Mendes Lang. And I personally think that Marcus Harness, although yes, he can play in that number 8 role, can play in the number 10, I think he's going to be a different type of effective winger than what we've got now with Mendes Lang and Caden Jackson. And I think we're starting to build the processes that are going to make that work. You obviously look at how Caden Jackson's been so impactful so far this season. Nathaniel Mendes Lang hasn't quite had the same impact at this point of the year. I do believe he's still picked up 2 assists, maybe 3, but he's not quite been the same player that he was last year. And obviously it took him up until October time, I think it was, to score his first goal in league competitions last year. So that's something that we're still waiting for with Mendes Lang. It obviously could come tomorrow versus Cardiff City. But what I'm sort of anticipating from Marcus Harness is, I think, 5 goals, 5 assists across the course of the rest of the season. I think as a player who is sort of seen as a more advanced-minded midfielder, can play out on either wing, I think that's something we need. We need delivery into the box. We need him to be able to beat a man, and we need him to be able to create things for the likes of Jerry Yates, Caden Jackson, Kenzo Holdmine. We need to be able to create those opportunities, and they've got to come realistically from our wide players with the way that Paul Warne likes to play. Now, obviously, this all depends on position. I think if he plays more of a number 10, number 8 role, I still think 5-6 assists should be the target, maybe a couple more. And I do think as a club we need more goals from midfield. Last season, Max Bird stepped up to the plate and started scoring goals. Conor Horahan at the end of the season was still one of our most influential players. Bear it in mind, he'd been a bench player from around the end of January when Ibu Adams came in. So it's one of those for me where we need goals from midfield, and I think Marcus Harness will be a player who will add that. And obviously, he can play through the middle in the 8 or 10. He can play either side. I think what is going to be interesting is how Paul Warne utilises Marcus Harness. I think he can be a very, very effective player, but in a different way to that of Caden Jackson and Mendes Lang. I think it'd be very interesting to see when and how Paul Warne utilises him. Now, going on to Nat Phillips, I think first off, what we need to discuss is how is he going to get into this team? We've obviously seen over the course of, not necessarily this season, but last year, the defensive displays put in by Curtis Nelson and Erin Cashin, and they formed a formidable partnership. Obviously, towards the back end of last season, we went to a back 3. There's no reason why that won't happen again this year, although I don't believe that would be the right call given our strength now in those wide areas. We need wide players. Now, obviously, as mentioned with Marcus Harness, he can play in that 10 role. So if we were to go to like a 3-4-3, I do think we have the players for it now, especially with the addition of Nat Phillips. Now, for Nat Phillips, I think it's important over the course of the rest of this season. I think 10 more clean sheets with him involved would be amazing. But first off, he's got to get involved. And I think if we put in another good display like we did versus Bristol City tomorrow, I think he's going to struggle to get into the side. And that's no offence to him or his ability, because I think he's going to be a massive player for us. But I think, as Sonny Bradley learnt last year, it's hard to get into a decent back four or decent back five. So I do think he'll break in. I think it'll be over the course of this period before the next international break, in my opinion. I do think that's what's going to happen. I think it'll be the same for Marcus Harness. I think there's a world where Mendes-Lang starts coming off the bench, in my personal opinion. And I think there is a potential world where we end up going to a back five, or even Nelson becomes a bench player. Now, I know a lot of people think, oh, Nelson was amazing last year. And yes, Nelson was brilliant last year. He's been good so far this year. But everyone makes mistakes. And I think the first sign of mistakes, I think Nat Phillips will take that shirt, grab it and run with it. And I think when you look at the performances, as obviously previously, we talked about a little bit about Marcus Harness earlier, I think when you talk about mistakes, consistency, being a threat, I think with Mendes-Lang, I think he gets tired. And I think what we need to look out for with this is making the changes at the right time, swapping those players for games when it matters. Because I think there's a world where our front three will be Jackson, Harness and Yates. That's a world that I think we're going to end up in. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that Mendes-Lang's a bad player. I love Mendes-Lang. I think he's still going to have a mega season for us this year. And he's going to have to, if we want to stay in the division. We're going to need goals from everywhere. And I think both Harness and Phillips are two players who are more than capable of playing at this level and being effective consistently. I think Phillips is going to be... I don't know how many of you guys will remember when we had Matt Clark during the Koku seasons and George Edmondson. Now, I don't think Edmondson was a massively hit signing because he came and he was injured, and I don't think he played for 6 weeks. Then he got injured again towards the back end of the season, didn't play for God knows how long. And I think if you look back to those signings of Matt Clark and George Edmondson, they had an impact on the team, and that's why people like them. And I think this is what we're going to have with Nat Phillips and Marcus Harness. Now, I think the big conversation is about bringing them in at the right times, making the right decisions, the right moves for the players and the players who are already in the squad. Obviously, I think with like the likes of Mendes-Lang, obviously given a new contract not long ago, I think it was around January, February time, if I remember rightly, when there was discussion of interest from elsewhere at the end of the season when his contract expired. And I think you've bought in a Marcus Harness to be impactful. You've bought in a Caden Jackson to be impactful. You've bought in a Corey Blackett-Taylor to be impactful. And I think what is going to be interesting, I think we also need to talk about in this video Corey Blackett-Taylor, because realistically he's not had an opportunity or a run, really. You look at Blackpool and Pompey were probably his best 2 games, and then he's been in and out of it. And you look at, you obviously have to discuss that he's going to be essentially a new signing. When it comes to him coming in, he's essentially going to be a brand new player for us. Someone who's not really been utilised in our system. And I think he could be massively effective. And you look at it then, and we've got 5 wide players, and there's 2 places. You look at the back 4, we've got 4 players, 5 players maybe if you count in Fozzie, maybe 6 if you count in Rooney, for 2 positions. I personally think come the end of the season, I think our 2 central defenders will be Cashin and Phillips. I think our front 3 will be Harness, Jackson and Yates. How that will work, I'm not entirely sure. But I certainly think we're in a position where these signings are going to have massive impact over the course of the season. It's just about how poor we utilise them. Now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. How do you think it's going to end up with Derby County this season? And obviously, these signings have obviously added a bit of excitement. The expectation is raised after the Bristol City game. I want to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments, so let me know down below. Hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my matchday vlog tomorrow evening. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.